All right, I have a little section of a run kind of squeezed between two big boulders here. So there's a little bit of pocket water, a little bit of run type water, and I'm just going to work my way through it. I'm going to start below this boulder that I have here, and that's quite a bit shallower and slower water. And then there's a chute right down the center that's a lot faster and deeper. So I'm going to start with a single nymph that has a 2.3 mil bead on it, and then fish through that shallower pocket water. And when I get to the chute in the center, I'll probably go up a bead size. And then there's a nice eddy on the far bank, and I'll reassess when I get closer based on what I can see as far as depth, whether I need to change back to that smaller fly. So let's go ahead and get going. I'm just going to make some quartering upstream, fairly short casts here, and I'm just following the path of that cider. I've got a little bit of a downstream to upstream wind, so I can't let the leader get super vertical or else it's going to get blown by that wind and take off. So I am lowering the rod angle and just moving it downstream a little faster than I might normally to keep a more horizontal angle with that rig. And even with that single 2.3 mil, I've still ticked bottom a couple times in this shallower pocket in front of me. So I definitely did not need any more weight than that. And that was kind of a maybe spot, so let's move out here to this run. It looks a little bit better. I got a nice run in front of me here, and right up at the top there's a set of rocks creating a little bit of white water. It's a warm July day. The temperatures are in the low 60s for the water, and so this type of water is a really good spot to hit anything that's broken and faster. So we're going to go ahead and work through it. I've got the water that's on this side that's closer to me is shallower, and then it gets deeper in the center, but it's it actually slows down because of the seam from this boulder. So I'm going to start with a lighter fly so that I can work the shallow water first, and then I'll go ahead and switch to a bead size heavier when I get to the fast water on the far side so that I can get down a little bit deeper. So right now I just have a single quildagon on that's got a 2.3 millimeter bead, or 2.5, and I'm going to work through some of the shallow riffly water in between, maybe 15 feet of line or leader in this case, outside my rod tip at the furthest extent. And we'll try that first, and then if I need to cast further, I can get more sinker time so that my fly gets a little bit deeper. But I'll start short first so that I can work shallow. There's a fish. Nice rainbow. And I'm not even to any of the better looking water yet, so it just kind of illustrates the point that when you get out on the river, don't go shooting straight for the honey hole. The good thing about Euro nymphing is that it allows you to cover a variety of depths and speeds of water. And it's really versatile in that regard. So you can fish a lot of that water that maybe in other times you would have left without fishing. And there's often a lot of fish in it that you pass up. There we go. Nice rainbow. Perdigon, that quildagon is right in the tip of its snout where it's premaxillary. And we'll work a little bit into the deeper water now. So a lot of times when I'm moving around, I just take one step at a time, or even a half step. And what that does is it changes my angle to wherever I'm fishing, changes the drift profile, and just a foot difference in side to side or back to front will change where your fly is at the best part of its drift as well. So I move in small steps and I cover things really methodically. I'm not taking off big chunks. Euro nymphing's not a great method for covering vast swaths of water all at once. It's not something like swinging a fly. You're drilling down holes into every little seam and pocket that you can find. So that's what I'm doing here. Oop. That was either bottom or a fish. So either way, that tells me that my single 2.5 mil is still enough weight. If I make a bunch of drifts where either the rig never slows down or I don't catch fish, and there's not tension in my rig, then I know I probably need to go to a little bit heavier size bead. Or if the wind picks up, it's kind of gusting on and off here. But I'll make several drifts. If I'm happy with those drifts, I'll take another step and keep covering. And you'll notice I'm taking up slack with my left hand here. I want to keep my sighter out of the water as I'm drifting. That sighter is thicker than your tippet, and it speeds up your drift, or drags basically downstream if it's underwater. So unless the wind is really going, which sometimes I'll use the sighter in that regard to anchor my rig, but normally I want to keep that sighter out of the water so that I don't have it dragging. Okay, so the far side is where it's faster and deeper. So I'm gonna work up the near side first with this same rig. Then I'm gonna drop back, switch to a heavier fly, and cover that far side. But to minimize the number of rig changes that I have to make, I'll stick to this shallow side first and just kind of work my way upstream before I go switching. And I'll go through the same process of evaluating my drift again. Is it getting down? Is it getting tension? What's the speed like? Is it slowing down from when it first enters the water? There's something I call the downshift, where it's going fast to begin with, and then as your bugs reach that lower part of the river, kind of right there, just happened to me, then they slow down and tighten up. It happened towards the end of the drift though, so I might not be quite deep enough. But I did hook bottom on that drift, so we'll stick with it for a second. Hard part about this water is there's a lot of depth differences from, there we go, there's a whitey. There's a lot of depth differences. I've got rocks that are poking up that'll grab your flies that are a lot shallower than the rest of the water around it. So you have to recognize when your rig is actually at depth, or if it's just hitting some of those rocks that are higher in the column. So I worked up the shallower side where I caught that first fish, missed one more unfortunately, but I've now dropped back down and taken a couple steps out, and that puts me within range of this faster, deeper water on the far side. And in the temperatures that we have right now, that's actually probably the better water that fish are going to be holding in. So I've gone and I've switched bead sizes. I had that single 2.5 mil bead. I've now gone to a 3 millimeter bead, and we'll repeat the same process. So I'll start low and just work my way upstream. I always try and work back to front, near to far, and shallow to deep. So I start at the back first, start close to me before I go far, and I start shallow, whether that's in the column or just in the area of the river, before I work deep. And I'm trying to cover a little bit different spot with each cast, just a few inches different than I did the last one, unless I felt like my last one was in a good spot, but I just didn't get a good drift. Then I might redo that drift a few times until I feel like it's perfect. Especially with the gusty wind that I've got today, there have been some drifts that I just know didn't go right. So I try and repeat them. Okay, it looks like I'm still not quite deep enough in that area. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a switch. All right, so on that last rig, I wasn't quite deep enough. I only had a single 3 millimeter B fly on for this heavier water, so I've gone and I've switched to 2 flies now. And I have one of my straggle stones on with a 3.5 millimeter bead, and then a 2.5 millimeter quildagon up above it, and guess what? I have enough weight. I think I just missed one right there. There we go. So I worked through the little bit of water in between here. That was the best looking spot in this area. So I wanted to get there, but I always want to fish my way to a spot. I got a little brown trout here. Ate a quildagon with a 3 millimeter bead on it. See you later, brown trout. I covered this pocket first, then the chute that was in between, but that far side pocket was the best spot, and I thought it would be from just looking at the water, but I wanted to make sure I didn't waste any water in between. That's always an important part when you're out Euro nymphing. Don't just go straight to the honey water. You're gonna find there's a lot of fish spread throughout other water types too, and if you are willing to fish all of it and work your way through it, you're gonna find a lot more fish that you would have spooked otherwise if you just went straight for your honey spot. So I hope this tip helps you out on the river. Go give Euro nymphing a try, and you're gonna get a lot of trout to come to your net. Maybe I can get one before these rafts come through.
I did not call you fat. I said I'm